The moment Elise Thornwood slid the folded napkin beneath the saucer of the world's richest man, she knew her life hung in a precarious balance. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from the 12-hour shift that had left her feet throbbing, but from the audacity of what she'd just done. 27 words scribbled in blue ink on a paper napkin, handed to a man who could buy and sell the entire lakeside town of Mapleton 10,000 times over. 27 words that contained her last desperate hope, her grandmother's final chance, and possibly, though Elise tried not to admit this even to herself, the end of her waitressing career at the Blue Water Grill. As Elon Musk's security detail ushered him toward the exit, Elise watched him pocket the napkin without reading it, and she felt her heart plummet into her sensible non-slip shoes. The Tuesday lunch shift had begun like any other at the Blue Water Grill, the upscale lakeside restaurant nestled in the quiet town of Mapleton, where the wealthy occasionally moored their boats for a meal when passing through to more glamorous destinations. Elise had arrived early, her copper-red hair pulled back in a neat bun, her navy uniform pressed despite having hand-washed it at midnight in her tiny apartment sink. At 32, she had the efficient movements of someone who'd been waiting tables for 14 years, ever since her dreams of medical school had evaporated along with her father's savings in the financial crisis. "Table 8 needs refills, Elise," called Donovan, the perpetually harried floor manager whose receding hairline seemed to retreat further each month under the stress of the job. "On it," she replied, already moving toward the service station with practiced precision, mentally cataloging the sweet tea for the woman in the cream blazer, the sparkling water for her husband, and the regular Coke for their sullen teenage son. The first hint that today would be different came when Percy, the elderly dishwasher with a penchant for conspiracy theories and an uncanny ability to predict weather changes in his arthritic knees, burst through the kitchen doors. "They're clearing out the patio," he announced, his eyes wide behind thick glasses. "All of it. And Wade's checking beneath the tables with some fancy mirror thing." Wade was the head of security for the Blue Water, a former military man who typically spent his days politely asking tourists not to dock at the private marina. If he was inspecting tables, something significant was happening. "Probably just another state senator," Donovan said dismissively, though Elise noticed how he straightened his tie and smoothed his thinning hair. When Chef Imogen emerged from her kitchen sanctuary, a rare occurrence that usually signaled either culinary brilliance or impending catastrophe, Elise knew this was no ordinary VIP. The famously temperamental chef's apron was spotless, her usually chaotic blonde curls tamed beneath her hat. "Listen up," Imogen announced, her British accent more pronounced than usual, a sure sign of stress. "We have a level 1 security dining request. The guest will arrive by private boat in approximately 40 minutes. The patio will be closed to other patrons. Elise, you'll handle service personally." A rush of questions filled the suddenly silent room, but Imogen raised her hand. "That's all I can share. Wade will brief Elise on protocol. Everyone else continues normal service indoors. And for heaven's sake, look sharp." As the staff dispersed in a flurry of whispers and speculation, Wade beckoned Elise to follow him to the empty patio. The lakeside view was spectacular today, the water a deep blue beneath a cloudless sky, with the distant mountains creating a postcard-perfect backdrop. "The client is a high-profile tech figure," Wade explained, his posture military straight as always. "No photos, no autographs, no personal questions. Serve efficiently and minimize interaction. The reservation is under Praetorian." "Who is it?" Elise asked, curiosity winning over protocol. Wade hesitated, then leaned closer. "Musk. And he's bringing someone. An engineering prospect he's considering for a position." Elise's mind raced. Elon Musk, the man behind Tesla, SpaceX, and a dozen other ventures that had transformed the modern world. The man whose autobiographical book sat dog-eared on her nightstand, one of the few luxuries she'd allowed herself in the past year. "Understood," she said, maintaining professional composure despite the sudden pounding of her heart. Wade nodded, apparently satisfied with her reaction. "His team requested our signature trout and a selection of local vegetables. Imogen is preparing everything personally. You'll need this." He handed her a small earpiece. Security will communicate through this. Follow their instructions precisely. As Wade walked away, Elise found herself alone on the patio, the earpiece a small weight in her palm. She slipped it in, hearing a brief crackle of static followed by a clipped voice confirming a clear approach vector. The next 38 minutes passed in a blur of preparation. The patio tables were rearranged, leaving only one in the corner with the best view yet most defensible position, a detail Elise noted with professional interest. Crystal was inspected twice for water spots. Imogen personally tasted each component of the meal she was preparing. When the sleek black boat approached the private dock, Elise took a deep breath and straightened her spine. This was just another customer, she told herself. Just another Tuesday. Except it wasn't. The moment Elon Musk stepped onto the patio, the air seemed to change. He was taller than she'd expected, dressed casually in a dark shirt and jeans, yet carrying an unmistakable aura of someone who had remade the world several times over. Beside him walked a nervous-looking young man clutching a tablet, whom Elise immediately identified as the engineering prospect. "Good afternoon, gentlemen," she said, voice steady despite her racing pulse. "Welcome to the Blue Water Grill. I'm Elise, and I'll be taking care of you today." Musk nodded politely, his eyes briefly meeting hers before scanning the lake view. "Perfect," he said simply, and took the seat facing both the water and the entrance. The meal progressed with clockwork precision. Elise served their courses with professional efficiency, appearing when needed and vanishing when conversation intensified. She couldn't help but overhear fragments about battery technology, thermal regulation challenges, and something called Project Helios that seemed to be causing the younger man considerable anxiety. "It's fundamentally a materials science problem," Musk was saying as Elise refreshed his sparkling water. "Everyone focuses on the software, but the limitation is physical." It was during dessert, a local huckleberry sorbet that Chef Imogen had insisted on preparing tableside, that Elise made her decision. The decision that had been building in her mind throughout the meal, fueled by desperation and the memory of her grandmother's increasingly frail voice during their morning call. Her grandmother, Vivian, had raised Elise after her parents' death. The woman who had worked 2 jobs to keep Elise in good schools, who had never missed a parent-teacher conference despite crushing fatigue, was now confined to a hospital bed. The experimental treatment that might save her was not covered by insurance, and the $190,000 price tag might as well have been $190 million for all Elise's ability to raise it. While Musk discussed the theoretical limits of energy density with his increasingly animated companion, Elise slipped into the service station and withdrew the napkin from her pocket. With shaking hands, she wrote, "Mr. Musk, my grandmother needs cartilage matrix augmentation therapy. Insurance won't cover it. I've read you believe in backing breakthrough medical tech. This is my last hope. Elise Thornwood, your server, 5550177. The words were inadequate, almost embarrassingly so, but they were all she had. When she returned with the check presenter, she carefully slipped the folded napkin beneath Musk's saucer, angling it so that it would be visible when he finished his coffee. But Musk never saw it. His phone buzzed, and after a brief glance, he stood abruptly. "We need to head back. There's a situation at the Austin facility," he told his companion, who scrambled to gather his materials. "Of course, sir," Elise said smoothly, presenting the leather folio containing the bill, which had already been arranged to be charged to an account. As Musk signed, he absently picked up his napkin, wiping his mouth before stuffing it into his pocket. Elise felt her breath catch. He had taken her note without realizing it, mixed with the used napkin. "Excellent meal," he said, with the distracted politeness of someone whose mind was already elsewhere. "Thank you for dining with us," Elise replied automatically, watching as the security team materialized to escort them back to the waiting boat. And then he was gone, taking with him both her impulsive note and what felt like her last chance. "Well?" Donovan appeared beside her, practically vibrating with curiosity. "What was he like?" Elise couldn't find the words to answer. She felt hollow, a strange mixture of relief that she'd taken the desperate gamble and crushing certainty that it would amount to nothing. The note would be discarded unread, or worse, read and dismissed as the pathetic ploy of a starstruck waitress. Just a normal customer, she managed, beginning to clear the table. The rest of the shift passed in a fog. Elise served 3 more tables, smiled at appropriate moments, and calculated tips with mechanical precision. But her mind kept returning to those 27 words on the napkin, now presumably in a trash bin on a luxury boat speeding across the lake. When her shift ended at 9, Elise walked the mile to Lakeside Memorial Hospital instead of taking the bus. The extra 20 minutes gave her time to compose herself before visiting hours ended. She couldn't let Vivian see her disappointment. The hospital's fluorescent lighting cast a harsh glow over her grandmother's sleeping form. Vivian had always been small, but the disease had reduced her further, until she seemed to disappear beneath the thin hospital blanket. Elise quietly pulled the visitor's chair closer, careful not to wake her. "Oh, Gran," she whispered, taking the older woman's papery hand in hers. "I did something really stupid today." To her surprise, Vivian's eyes fluttered open. "There's my girl," she said, her voice thin but warm. "And I doubt that very much." Elise managed to smile. "Remember how I told you a VIP was coming to the restaurant? It was Elon Musk." Vivian's eyebrows rose slightly. "The Rocket Man? The one in your book?" "Yes," Elise admitted. "And I slipped him a note about your treatment." She expected disappointment, perhaps even dismay, but Vivian's face softened. "Oh, Elise, you shouldn't have done that. We're going to be fine without charity." "It's not charity," Elise insisted, the words catching in her throat. "It's an investment. The treatment is experimental. He invests in medical technology. It made sense." "And what did he say?" Elise looked down at their intertwined hands. "Nothing. He didn't read it. Just put it in his pocket by accident." Vivian squeezed her hand with surprising strength. "Then it wasn't meant to be. We still have options." But they didn't. Not really. Vivian's condition was deteriorating rapidly. The conventional treatments had failed. The small insurance settlement from the accident that had injured Vivian and killed Elise's parents years ago was long depleted. Elise's savings, even combined with what she could borrow, couldn't come close to covering the experimental therapy. "I should let you rest," Elise said, rising to kiss her grandmother's forehead. "Don't worry so much," Vivian murmured, already drifting back to sleep. "Everything happens for a reason." Outside the hospital, the night air was cool against Elise's flushed face. She checked her phone out of habit. No messages, no calls, no miraculous solutions, before beginning the walk back to her apartment. The streets of Mapleton were quiet, most businesses already closed for the night. As she passed the darkened storefronts, her reflection ghosted alongside her in the glass, a tall woman with tired eyes and copper hair escaping its once neat bun. She barely recognized herself anymore. When had she last laughed genuinely? When had hope not been tinged with desperation? Her apartment was on the 3rd floor of a converted Victorian house near the lake. The climb up the creaking stairs felt particularly grueling tonight. Inside, the studio was neat but sparse. A Murphy bed, a small kitchenette, bookshelves made of cinder blocks and boards. The only luxury was her collection of books on medicine and technology, remnants of her abandoned dreams. Elise kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto the bed without bothering to unfold it from the wall. Sleep would be impossible with her mind still racing, replaying the moment she'd slipped the napkin under the saucer, imagining alternate scenarios where Musk had read it, had been moved by her plight, had offered assistance. Her phone buzzed with a text alert, startling her from her reverie. Probably Donovan asking her to cover someone's shift tomorrow. The number was unfamiliar. "Ms. Thornwood, your note found. Interesting timing. Need more information about treatment. Available to discuss?" Elise stared at the screen, her heart hammering against her ribs. This couldn't be real. It was a cruel prank, perhaps from one of the kitchen staff who had somehow overheard. Her phone rang suddenly, the same unknown number flashing on the screen. With shaking fingers, she answered. Hello? Elise Thornwood? The voice was clipped, professional, unfamiliar. Yes, that's me. My name is Javier Reed, Mr. Musk's personal assistant. He received your note earlier today and has asked me to follow up regarding your grandmother's medical situation. Elise sank slowly to the floor, her legs no longer able to support her. This is real? Very much so, the voice replied, a hint of amusement breaking through the professional tone. Mr. Musk is particularly interested in breakthrough medical technologies and their application. The treatment you mentioned, cartilage matrix augmentation, aligns with several research initiatives he's monitoring. I don't understand, Elise managed, though a wild hope was beginning to build in her chest. How did he even find my number? I only wrote it on the napkin. Mr. Musk has resources, Javier said simply. Now, can you provide details about your grandmother's condition, the facility offering the treatment, and any relevant medical records? For the next 20 minutes, Elise answered questions about Vivian's diagnosis, the progression of her disease, and the experimental therapy that offered the only remaining hope. She explained about the accident years ago, the initial injuries that had seemed manageable, and the devastating deterioration that had followed. The treatment is being developed at North Star Medical in Seattle, she explained. Grand's doctor referred us, but when insurance denied coverage, I understand, Javier said. And the cost estimate is $190,000? Yes, Elise confirmed, the number still staggering to her. That includes the procedure, hospitalization, and follow-up care. I'll need you to send all relevant medical documentation to secureupload.elonoffice.com. Use the passcode I'm texting you now. Mr. Musk's medical technology team will review the case. Elise's hand was cramping from gripping the phone so tightly. What happens then? If the treatment aligns with Mr. Musk's interests in medical innovation, arrangements may be made to facilitate access, Javier said carefully. I should note that this is not a typical procedure, Ms. Thornwood. Your note happened to intersect with ongoing research interests. I understand, she said quickly. And I'm grateful just for this call, for any consideration at all. After providing more details and confirming the upload procedure, Elise ended the call and sat motionless on her apartment floor, staring at the phone in her hand as if it might disappear. Had that really happened? Had her desperate gambit actually reached one of the world's most powerful men? And more incredibly, had it actually prompted a response? Moving on autopilot, Elise retrieved Vivian's medical files from her meticulously organized filing cabinet and began scanning them with the portable scanner she used for work documents. Each page represented another piece of the complex medical puzzle that had consumed their lives for the past 18 months. By 2 a.m., bleary-eyed but too wired to sleep, Elise had uploaded the last of the files. There was nothing more she could do but wait. She finally unfolded her bed and lay down, though sleep remained elusive as her mind cycled through possibilities, from miraculous salvation to crushing disappointment. Morning arrived with no further contact. Elise went through her preparation routine mechanically, wondering if last night's call had been an elaborate dream born of desperation. At the Blue Water Grill, life continued as if yesterday's VIP visit had never happened. Donovan complained about a seafood delivery. Percy theorized that the government was controlling the weather. Chef Imogen terrorized a new line cook for improperly segmenting citrus. You look terrible, Donovan observed bluntly as Elise prepared for the lunch rush. Late night? Something like that, she murmured, unwilling to share what had happened. Speaking it aloud might somehow jinx the fragile possibility. The lunch shift was mercifully busy, allowing Elise to focus on the immediate tasks of serving food, refilling drinks, and calculating bills rather than checking her phone every 3 minutes. It was during a rare lull, as she restocked napkins at the service station, that her phone vibrated in her pocket. Treatment review complete. Transportation arranged for V. Thornwood to North Star Medical tomorrow 9 a.m. Driver will collect it from the hospital. All expenses covered through EM Medical Innovation Fund. confidentiality agreement to follow. JR. The napkins scattered across the floor as Elise's hands lost their strength. She read the message 3 times, unable to process the words fully. Elise? You okay? It was Donovan, looking concerned as he approached. She couldn't speak. Instead, she turned the phone screen toward him, tears blurring her vision. Donovan read quickly, his expression shifting from confusion to astonishment. Is this real? Is this about your grandmother? Elise nodded, a sob finally breaking free. It's real. He's paying for her treatment. The experimental one. The one that might actually save her. And then she was crying openly, deep, racking sobs that came from somewhere beyond conscious control, as the realization crashed over her in waves. Her desperate gamble, 27 words on a napkin, had worked. Her grandmother would get the treatment she needed. There was hope. Donovan, looking thoroughly alarmed by this emotional display, awkwardly patted her shoulder before shouting for Imogen. The chef emerged from the kitchen, took one look at the situation, and made an executive decision. You're done for the day, she announced, guiding Elise toward the staff room. Go to your grandmother. Tell her the good news. But my shift, Elise began automatically. Is covered, Imogen finished firmly. Some things are more important than lunch service, even though I know that. 20 minutes later, Elise was practically running through the hospital corridors, heedless of the signs requesting visitors to maintain a dignified pace. When she burst into Vivian's room, she found her grandmother sitting up, looking stronger than she had in days. Gran! Elise gasped, out of breath from both the run and the overwhelming emotions. You're not going to believe what happened. Vivian's eyes, the same deep green as Elise's own, widened as her granddaughter explained about the text messages, the medical review, and the arrangements already in motion. Tomorrow? Vivian asked, disbelief evident in her voice. We're going to Seattle tomorrow? You are, Elise confirmed, showing her the message. A driver is coming to get you. Everything's arranged. Vivian reached for Elise's hand, her own trembling slightly. Your napkin note did this? To the man you served lunch to? When Elise nodded, tears threatening again, Vivian shook her head in wonder. I've always said you were too stubborn for your own good, just like your mother. A smile broke across her face, transforming it into the vibrant expression Elise remembered from childhood. Seems like sometimes that's exactly what's needed. They spent the afternoon in a state of cautious joy, reviewing the details as they came in via text and email. The confidentiality agreement arrived, stating clearly that while they were free to discuss the medical treatment itself, they were not to publicly disclose the source of funding or any connection to Elon Musk or his affiliated companies. He doesn't want recognition for this? Vivian asked, surprised. Apparently not, Elise replied, equally puzzled. The man was famous for his public persona and active social media presence. Why the secrecy around an act of charity? The answer came in a final message that evening, as Elise helped Vivian pack a small bag for the journey. Ms. Thornwood, EM, asked me to share, this isn't charity, it's R&D. Your grandmother's case provides valuable data for a technology with significant potential. If successful, treatment becomes a template for wider application. Everyone wins. Good luck tomorrow. J.R. Elise read the message aloud to Vivian, who laughed softly. Clever man, she said. He's found a way to help without making it feel like pity. I like him already. That night, as Elise prepared to sleep in the hospital chair beside her grandmother, a strange peace settled over her. Tomorrow would bring uncertainty. Medical procedures always carried risks, and experimental treatments even more so. But for the first time in 18 months, there was genuine hope. Elise, Vivian said softly in the dimmed room, whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know how proud I am of you. Your courage, your persistence, they're worth more than any money. Elise squeezed her grandmother's hand. Save your strength, Gran. You're going to need it when you're hiking again in 6 months. As Vivian drifted to sleep, Elise found herself thinking about the improbable chain of events that had led to this moment. A famous billionaire choosing their small lakeside restaurant, her impulsive decision to write the note, the napkin being accidentally pocketed rather than left behind or discarded. Perhaps Vivian was right. Perhaps everything did happen for a reason.